analyzing those things. Okay, so the election of 1876, all right? 1876 election had a Democrat named Samuel Tilden. Samuel Tilden was from New York, okay? Samuel Tilden was from New York by, do what? This is the election of 1876. This is why the Reconstruction ends, essentially. There are a couple reasons, and this is one of them. In the election of 1876, Samuel Tilden was from New York. By this time, almost all the states are back in the Union. And the Republican was a guy named Rutherford B. Hayes. Have we heard of Rutherford B. Hayes before?
Yes.
Okay. Rutherford B. Hayes, the Republican, he was pretty weak. And when the election happened, Tilden got more popular votes, and he actually had one more electoral vote. But what was the problem?
That's not majority.
There were 3 states whose electoral votes could not be agreed upon. Florida, obviously, because Florida is traditionally a train wreck. Louisiana and South Carolina. Right? So those 3 states could not agree on whose candidate won. Tilden won the popular vote, and going into those 3 states, he had actually one more electoral vote. Now, what party is Tilden?
Democrat.
Where are the states that are in question?
South.
Who do you think probably won the states?
Rutherford.
Tilden did. Isn't the South fully Democrat?
Yeah.
Well, this is the greatest thing. A committee, a 15-person committee was established by Congress to investigate this, okay? It had 8 Republicans on it, and it had 7 Democrats. And they investigated the 3 states, and they decided that Florida and Louisiana and South Carolina were Republican states. And they voted on it by a vote of 8-7. And by a vote of 8-7, Florida, South Carolina, and Louisiana were given to the Republicans. The South was like, you've got to be kidding me. And for once, historically speaking, the South has quite the point. Do you remember reading about this?
Yeah. What were the 3 states?
Florida, South Carolina, and Louisiana. I don't know that it'll be on the test, but... and so the South is like, no, we are not going to go along with this. This is ridiculous. And so what happens is the North says, all right, let's compromise. And they come to a compromise which ends Reconstruction, essentially. All right, here's the compromise. Number 1, Hayes is president. Number 2, Democrats in the South can have their states back. Remember I said that during a brief portion of Reconstruction, with military Reconstruction, the Republicans and many African Americans had some representation because the military was enforcing it. The military is going to get out and the Democrats can have their states back. And then, when we mean Democrats, we mean white people, right? We mean people who hated black people. And lastly, Reconstruction would end. The Compromise of 1877 ends Reconstruction. There were other factors that went into it that we'll talk about. It was a time of a lot of corruption. We're going to talk about that starting on Thursday. And you guys have read about the Gilded Age, right? And all the corruption going on. That was part of it. The Panic of 1873, which we'll get to, was part of it. But this is it. The Compromise of 1877 officially ends Reconstruction, and it ends up being a failure. We talked about the positives, right? We talked about the Freedmen's Bureau and the 3 amendments, the 4 sacks. All of those things are good for African Americans. And the South was officially back in the Union, right? So from that perspective, the South was back. Slaves were freed. But we're left with this big jumbled mess. Yes? Hayes ended up being our 19th president. And Reconstruction ends, and again, the South and the North were legally back together. But did the South and the North like each other? No. And there were these huge lingering problems. In the end, who gets screwed over the most?
North.
Yeah, but who in the South?
Blacks.
Black people. Freed slaves get screwed over the most. The North basically allows black people in the South to stay under the domination of their Southern Democratic Party for the next 100 years. So for the next 100 years, black people are going to have different laws, different enforcement of laws, different expectations, different social structure, worse education, and it's going to go on because of the way Reconstruction ended. And many people point to the fact that had Lincoln been alive, he would have done this much differently. He would not have let the radical Republicans control him, and he would have been able to maybe do it a little bit quicker.
Hayes the president right after Johnson?
No, Grant was, but he was so useless, we're not going to talk about him yet. We'll go back and talk about Grant when we talk about the Gilded Age, because he was so corrupt, sort of accidentally.
That's what I was going to ask. I was going to say.
I was going to say, who's our 18th?
No, Johnson only served one. No, he didn't even run for office the second time.
Really?
No, he didn't run. But Grant was pretty useless, and I want to sort of show you how this ends, because tomorrow what we're going to do is when we look at the stuff, we're talking about the first part. Don't put your stuff away yet. For this first part, we're going to look at poll tax literacy tests, the lynchings, Booker T. Washington versus Du Bois, and then I've got a bunch of pictures and maps, and then I want to read some stuff from the era, so primary evidence, and that should give us a pretty good indication of how all of it comes to a conclusion. Does that make sense? Okay. Thursday, we'll start with corruption stuff, and then I'll answer. If you want, I'll do Zen tomorrow, and then I'll do. Turn it off.
Oh.